D&D and tabletop games in general are incredibly interesting because they take what are objectively meaningless numbers and random words on a page and turn them into something we genuinely care about. Now, I could say the same about books. I could say that they take these random letters on a page and turn it into a fascinating narrative that we can all care about. Or I could say the same about movies or paintings, pretty much any kind of art. But when it comes to tabletop games, I find it so much more fascinating and so much more realistically charging emotionally. I was rewatching the final combat encounter of Campaign 1 of Critical Role, and before I even jump into any of this, if you have any desire to 1, not be spoiled on Campaign 1, or 2, not be spoiled on The Legend of Vox Machina, should it get animated all the way to the end, please don't watch this video. There's just no way that I can put in enough timestamps to help you skip over all the spoilers, since this whole video is pretty much a spoiler for the entire campaign. But as I was rewatching this encounter, I found something just uniquely fascinating about it. One, I realized that I didn't remember a lot of the context for it. Yes, I've watched all the way through the campaign several times, but I just wanted to skip towards this final encounter because I wanted to talk about a specific moment. But as I was looking at it, I realized I don't remember any of the context for the battle. There were characters who showed up that I don't really remember what happened, and there was different things that were mentioned and referenced that I just didn't recall. But what I did recall was the emotions. The emotions that I felt looking through this entire story. And it was all summed up beautifully in a friendship that kind of started it all. Liam O'Brien and Sam Riegel have been friends for a long time. In fact, their bond, their friendship, pretty much started Critical Role. Because of the fact that the two talked with each other and wanted to play D&D together, that was one of the core parts that actually created, well, Critical Role as we know it. So the entire game was based off of a foundation of friendship, but Sam didn't take D&D seriously. In fact, he considered it somewhat of a joke.
Here's the thing, guys. I've never played D&D, I don't know how to do it, and frankly, I'm frightened.
Right, well, I'm a little frightened too, but so Sam has never done this. I played Dungeons and Dragons when I was in high school, like maybe sophomore. But I have some experience, I understand how it goes. Now, I was 16 when I did, it's been a long time, but you have zero experience.
I don't know what, and we got an email from Matt asking us to pick our characters.
Right, for anyone who's familiar, I mean, normally you have a campaign, Sam.
Okay.
And what that means is it's ongoing. It's like Charles Dickens, it's a serial drama. You get together regularly.
Really? People do this?
People do it a lot.
Wow. Okay. And we choose characters for ourselves, and then the dungeon master sort of paints us a yarn and puts our characters in a world. Right. So help me choose my character. Should I be a cleric, rogue, halfling, Goliath? Or should I be a ranger, wizard, tiefling? What is that? Can I just be the worst? What's the worst? I'll be the worst character.
Well,
is that
like a gnome?
Sure, what's that?
Well, it's just a small person, a very small person.
So it's just a short guy.
Yeah.
Okay. That context of friendship is going to be important in a little bit, but let's focus on the battle. Now, I won't lie, this entire combat is an absolute slog. It is several hours long of just watching consistent combat. And in order to make it through that sort of marathon, you need to make sure that you're well nourished. And speaking of nourishment, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Factor. Factor is a meal delivery company that delivers meals directly to your door. Their meal plans range from 4 to 18 meals per week, and you can add more or reduce the number depending on your specific needs. Also, you can easily skip a week if you need to, like if you know you're already going to have some food ready, and Factor meals arrive pre-prepared and ready to eat within just 2 minutes, and I cannot express to you how much that saves my butt as somebody who generally doesn't have time for cooking, and when my wife is out, I'm pretty bad at making sure I get it done. As was recently pointed out to me by some coworkers, I have a tendency to get really focused on what I'm doing and then just not eat. This inevitably ends up being a problem if I'm editing an extremely long video or just generally focused on whatever I'm doing, but that's where Factor comes in. Plus, they taste great, and I can personally say so as I've been eating them a ton while trying to edit a bunch of videos to get ahead of the game, and I cannot thank Factor enough. Seriously, as somebody who's really bad at keeping meal times in mind, having this readily available for when I get hungry is a lifesaver. The only issue with having this food this readily available is that you tend to get lethargic after eating a full meal, and, well, you know, sometimes I get a little distracted from editing. So go ahead and head to factor75.com or click the link below and use the code PLAYYOURROLE50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. Now, back to the video and the more emotional parts. Vox Machina has spent a long time preparing for a battle versus Vecna, the Ascended, now trying to ascend to the god of death, and it is a brutal battle. Matt does a fantastic job of coming down and making sure that this battle is well maintained and dangerous. In fact, Vecna cast Meteor Swarm, one of the most highly damaging spells in the game, 3 times over the course of the entire battle. It is incredibly brutal. And that being said, looking across the entire battle, I found myself frustrated in quite a few situations. I found myself talking to the screen, calling out rules errors, the fact that they constantly mess up rules and constantly let things happen. But it kind of occurred to me, it doesn't really matter. See, all those rules are just rules. They're just there to facilitate the story that's being told, right? And the more that I was looking into it, the more that I realized, despite the fact that I was so frustrated with all these rules, you know what I remembered from the first time I watched it? None of that. I didn't remember the rules, I didn't remember the different turns they took, I didn't remember the amount of damage that was dealt. What I remembered was the emotions that I felt from it. And I think there are a lot of us that can really relate with that sort of feeling. And God, was this an emotional battle. Yes, it was a slog. It is several hours of just constant combat over and over and over, waiting long amounts of times for anybody to be able to take their turn again. But there's one specific story, one specific through line through the entire combat encounter that makes it just infinitely special. See, Sam really was the MVP of this fight. It is incredible the amount of things he does with Scanlan. He is able to counterspell so many times, he's able to protect so many people, he is able to keep everybody up. I mean, like, it is absolutely incredible what he manages to do. And it took a lot of prep. Using spells like Simulacrum and Unseen Servant, he's able to create a contingency system that ends up causing him quite an advantage at the beginning of the battle, even if it does get wiped off pretty early on. He continues to counterspell over and over and over. He prevents Keyleth from being feeble-minded. He prevents so many dangerous spells from happening.
Pike and Grog to make charisma saving throws, please.
Oh, but I counterspelled it at 8th level. Ooh. That's why I got closer, motherfucker.
And he is trying his hardest, you'd think. See, it's funny because if you watch Sam over the course of the entire battle, he is constantly flipping through his notes, desperately searching to make sure what he can do. It seems like this man is fighting for his life, but it's not necessarily true. Sam has an ulterior motive. Let's swap focus to Liam now. Liam is playing Vax. And if you've watched Legend of Vox Machina, or just generally the campaign, you know that Vax is marked for death. It was something that happened very early on in the campaign, in fact.
Wants to make the third and final attempt at aid.
I do.
Oh, shit.
I do.
I'll let you do it.
I pull my sister in close, and I say, "Take me instead, you raven bitch."
Go ahead and make a persuasion check.
And Liam is playing this knowing that Vax is marked for death. Vax has always been brash and bold, going into danger, but this battle particularly, I mean, he goes in. Constantly does he put himself in danger's way, literally flying up and grabbing onto Vecna's face, causing him to be a massive target.
Am I within 120 feet of his face, Vecna's face?
120 feet? Yes, you are.
I'm gonna latch onto Vecna's face.
You're gonna fly straight
I'm
at
gonna
his
fly
face.
straight at his face.
Okay.
He knows he's going to die, and he's desperate to do so, a martyr to save his friends. He is determined to do this. But Sam is determined to not let him. This is where things get insane. See, over the course of the battle, Sam counterspells multiple times, saving the day constantly. And then we start to get forward into the battle and we start to see everybody get desperate. All of the 9th level spells have been used up. Everybody's used everything they have, and they're attempting to put these trammels that are going to allow them to trap Vecna again into Vecna. And they're trying it with everything they have, and it's just not working out. Keyleth, in the shape of a planetar, flies up and attempts to stab it directly into Vecna, and because of bad dice rolls, the trammel shatters, meaning that they have less and less time to do this. At this point, everybody is beginning to get desperate. Everybody's doing everything they can. They are trying to deal as much damage to Vecna as possible to prevent him from healing so they can continue to shove what trammels they have left in. They are desperately performing this juggling act of giving the trammels to who needs to go and lifting them up, and at this point, Vecna has gotten wise to Scanlan and polymorphs him into a fox. And then, because Scanlan can no longer counterspell, banishes Grog and Scanlan. At this point, it is looking dire. It is looking rough. They've attempted constantly to do all this, and while they do manage to get Grog and Scanlan back, it may be a little bit too late. Skip forward into the encounter, and we see that Vecna realizes his time is up. This is not going to be a battle he can win today, and so he begins to use the Hand of Vecna, the legendary item, to teleport away. This is a huge moment because this is literally Matt looking across the entire table and saying, stop him now or this story is not going to end, and it's not going to end well. If Vecna leaves, it's essentially a victory for him because he'll be able to regain power and come back and do this again. And this time they won't have the trambles. This is their one chance, their one shot to be able to take him down. And if not, this story is going to end very, very differently. And you look at everybody constantly trying to figure out what to do, and it's incredibly interesting because if you notice, as Matt says, he begins to teleport, look at Sam. What does Sam do? He says, no, I can't do it. I can't counterspell this. He is tapped out absolutely. Everybody's used everything they've done. Nobody could stop it. You could see everybody beginning to say, okay, I'll take my actions to attack. I'll try and stop this. I'll use a Mage Slayer reaction, but focus in on Sam. And we see that he's getting distraught, frustrated. And finally, he looks up at Matt and says,
Is it worth it?
Keep him here?
16.
Yeah, he's running away.
Yeah, he's trying to run away. Trying to teleport away.
Sentient beings try to get away when they're done.
Okay.
26.
Are you trying to counterspell?
I'll counterspell.
Okay.
Oh, shit. Never mind.
What level?
9.
Oh. Oh.
That was pretty clutch.
I'll counterspell it. At this point, everybody has assumed he's totally tapped out of the ability to do this, so everybody's absolutely elated, but there's still going to be a roll, right? He still has to roll to see if he can do this. No. He looks at Matt and says, 9th level. Up until this point, despite the fact that everything that Scanlan has done, Sam has been fighting with one arm tied behind his back. He has not used his 9th level spell. That is insane on so many levels. That's absolutely incredible. But in this moment of him preventing the entire campaign from falling into ruin, at this moment of him managing to save everything, Sam is distraught. He is absolutely broken by this moment. While everybody else is cheering and excited and ready to finish this fight, Sam looks like he lost because he did. As time goes on, as we watch him, he looks over at Liam and says, I'm sorry.
We're trying to save a wish from me.
Matt.
33. Don't worry about it.
And it's funny that I'm tearing up at this because it is a ridiculous moment. It is just a moment in a D&D game, and like I said, the numbers don't matter. None of this matters. It's all just on paper. Then why am I tearing up right now? Why am I feeling this emotion? I've been going through this constant thought process recently about art. There's been this argument about AI art and whether AI art is ethical or not, whether it is plagiarism or not. And weirdly enough, despite all the conversation on it, I don't think that it has touched on the portion of it that matters the most. And that is, what is art? I don't think there's a simple answer for that question. It is a massive equation to try and figure out. But for me personally, art is looking at something another human made and knowing that they get what I go through. They understand that connection. There is another human out there who understands what I'm going through, and it creates a feeling of connection in the world that nobody is alone. Art is the absence of loneliness to me. It is the ability to reach out, to communicate. And so weirdly enough, this conversation about AI art is very interesting to me because it misses the point. It is not a connection. It is not the absence of loneliness. It's not sharing the human condition. So we take this back to this moment, and I apologize, I'm gonna have to wipe away. I tried so hard to record this so many times without tearing up, but it just wouldn't happen. In this moment, these characters don't mean anything. These numbers don't mean anything. The dice that they roll don't mean anything until you understand the connection. Like I stated at the beginning of this video, Sam and Liam's friendship has been there since the beginning, and all the way to the end, we see that this game, this meaningless hunk of numbers and math, means something now because they are not alone. They are there together because Sam looked at everything that was going on and desperately wanted to do something nice for his friend. Now, please understand, I have no illusion of a parasocial relationship with these two. I've never met them. I'm sure they're nice. I don't know them. This is not an important moment to me. The reason that I get teary, the reason that I feel something with this is because I see two people caring for each other. And that is something that I can empathize with and relate with, and that leads to, this is art, because it communicated those emotions, that condition with me. I really need to It's a rough recording to get through. They managed to communicate that in a way that was something that was important to everybody watching. I know there are so many people who genuinely felt this moment. And no, it is not because we believe we truly know these people. It is not a parasocial moment of that, of believing I have a relationship with them. It's because I saw two people truly care about each other over the course of a D&D game. And I knew that I could do the same, that everybody could do the same, that sort of friendship is very, very, very valuable. And unfortunately, it gets even worse when it comes to tear jerking. We get to see the two have a conversation with each other to try and communicate. We see that Sam apologizes to Liam. So I'm sorry, I tried to save this wish for you. And we see Liam comforting Sam. This stupid game where none of it matters. They truly, truly care for each other, and it creates art. It creates this beautiful moment of human condition and connection. And I think that that is why tabletop games in general are so important to me, because they are another storytelling medium that can create art, but it requires the most fundamental of all life, connection between others, the absence of loneliness. This moment taught me so much, and I knew that I was going to have a hard time recording this going into this. But I didn't think I realized how hard it was going to be, because it helps me reflect on all the important moments in my life, all the times where tabletop games have meant something to me, where I was able to connect with somebody because of them. I've managed to gain so many friends over the course of this channel, and the reason my entire channel is based around helping people roleplay the archetypes they want to is for this moment, the hope that they get to have that moment of connection, to help them fully realize their character, to go through that process in the hopes that they can connect with other people. I continue to teach how to role play and how to play different types of characters because I want that for everybody. Because I think there is nothing more human than feeling that connection while telling that beautiful story and creating what objectively is art. There have been times before where I've talked about Critical Role and I've ended the video with saying, I doubt that you'll see this, but if you do see this, yada, yada, yada. And there were times where I honestly believe that they wouldn't see it. And at this point, I honestly don't know. But to anybody on the Critical Role cast, or anybody who plays tabletop roleplay games, when you see this, please know, it's okay to feel, it's okay to love, it's okay to hurt, even over the most simple of things, because as long as you are doing it and feeling a connection with other humans, I think that's what life's about, and I think it is beautiful. I'm sitting alone in a room with a green screen and a camera, and for some reason I'm crying while talking about this. It's ridiculous, but it's human. And honestly, I don't think there's anything better than that.
Liam,
38.
thanks for introducing me to Dungeons and Dragons.
Do you like it?
I'm getting to like it.
I rerolled